Here.
Guzekowski.
Here.
I would now like to ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have with us Carrollton Troop 321 to lead us in the pledge. Sure. Ready, boys.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If everybody would please take a look at the minutes of 12/18/18. It's been a little while for us, but if there are any omissions, errors, corrections, questions, and when you are satisfied, motion.
Kirkowski make a motion to approve the minutes of December 18, 2018.
Oracle second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Item number 4 is a resolution recognizing our longtime employee, John Olens, retiring from engineering. Catherine, when you are ready, would you read that into the record, please?
Certainly. Resolution number 12024-011519 is a resolution of commendation to John Ozolins. Whereas John Ozolins began his employment with the City of Oak Creek on December 4th, 1978 as a draftsman in the planning department, and whereas John Ozolins was promoted to the position of engineering technician with the engineering department in 1981, and whereas John Ozolins was promoted to the position of senior engineering technician in 1996, and whereas John Ozolins was a highly effective employee during his many years of service with the City of Oak Creek, assuring the satisfactory construction of tens of millions of dollars worth of road and other public work projects, integral to the city's transformation from its once rural small-town identity to the dynamically growing and thriving city it is today. And whereas John Ozolins has recently celebrated his 40th employment anniversary and is believed to be the longest tenured City Hall employee in the city's history. And whereas John Ozolins is retiring from his position of senior engineering technician with the City of Oak Creek Engineering Department effective January 12, 2019, completing over 40 years of valued service to the city. Now therefore be it resolved that the city's best wishes for good health and happiness be extended to John Ozolins and his family in his retirement years. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting and that the city clerk is hereby directed to transmit a suitable copy thereof to John Ozolins, passed and adopted this 15th day of January 2019.
Thank you, Catherine. Anybody like to say a few words on John's behalf? Anybody? Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I've worked with John my entire tenure here at the city, which is now over 20 years. So I think congratulations is in order. 40 years at one place of employment is really rare. John did a lot of good for the city, and we were fortunate to have him for as long as we did. Some may have noticed that he was moving a little slower over his last half year or so here, and I think he can be forgiven for that. He spent a lot of years out at construction sites braving the elements, so I think the time was right, and wish him well in his well-earned retirement.
And just to add to that, I had the pleasure of being invited to John's retirement ceremony or celebration, we'll call it. Quite a colorful character. This guy really had the history of Oak Creek. Not only did he serve 42 years, he grew up right in this area. He went to high school here. He still lives in the area. Boy, he knew every inch of this city. And not only was he a dedicated citizen, he was a dedicated employee. He's going to be greatly missed. He's big shoes to fill, but if they got to find the shoes, they're hanging in a tree out there. He hung his work boots up in one of the parking lot trees. So. Kind of an inside joke. He told everybody he was doing it. But I really did enjoy the time with him. And again, I want to thank him for the 42 years of service he had. So, excellent. If nothing else, motion for John, please.
I'll move to approve Resolution 12024-011519, a resolution of commendation to John Ozolins, retiring senior engineering technician.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Item 5 is the first of our public hearings, and it's consideration of a conditional use permit for M&M Truck Center. Doug, Catherine, you want to read that in first, please?
Certainly. Public hearing number 1 is to consider a request submitted by M&M Truck Center for a conditional use permit for automobile and truck engine and body repair, outdoor storage of vehicles and outdoor display of vehicles for sale, and semi-truck trailer parking on the property at 9840 South 27th Street. Applicant is M&M Truck Center. Property owner is RD Invest, Inc. There follows the legal description. Date of notice is December 12th, 2018.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Doug Seymour. I am the Director of Community Development for the city, and this is a public hearing on a request for a conditional use permit for automobile and truck engine and body repair, and the outdoor storage of vehicles and outdoor display of vehicles for sale, as well as semi-truck trailer parking for the property at 9840 South 27th Street. A little bit unique. Many of you remember this property as the old fireplace store. And roughly a decade ago, the city went through a process of reviewing and planning the 27th Street corridor, and at that point assigned a series of overlay districts to that. This happened to fall within an office overlay district, and as such would have required any future use to be compatible with those permitted uses, which were offices. For a number of reasons, the corridor did not progress the way that we had envisioned it, and the prospect for offices in this location probably wasn't realistic given the factors that were in play here. So rather than acting as as an inducement to redevelop the property, it did have the exact opposite effect. It was really an inducement to disinvest in the property. The council in November removed that overlay district, leaving the base zoning of M1 manufacturing. Now, the applicant wishes to use that property for the automobile and truck repair and outdoor storage of vehicles, et cetera. Those all do require a conditional use permit in the M1 manufacturing zoning district, which is still the base zoning district. And what this is an opportunity for the applicant, the owner, to make use of the property, an opportunity for the city to get some control over the operations of the site in terms of a general development plan, in terms of the uses, in terms of a conditional use permit. And one other thing I'd like to point out is that it gives the city an opportunity. It's something it's a little bit new to some of our conditional use permits now. It gives us an opportunity to put a duration on the conditional use permit. So, we talked about the 27th Street corridor, and we're still hopeful that the corridor, will develop and redevelop over the years. And that's why, in negotiations with the applicant, the owner, we've placed a duration of 6 years on that. So while the corridor is transitioning, we still want people to make use of their property. We still want people to invest in their property. But what we don't want to do is to have this conditional use out there infinitely, in essence, and that the council would get an opportunity to review that again in 6 years. So with that in mind, and I do have a site plan available, pardon me, which kind of shows you what the general development plan would be. Not a lot of changes to the site. It'll be cleaned up. They'd utilize the existing building, the existing parking areas. They'd bring it up to code with respect to utilities and with fire protection, and with respect to landscaping and what have you. But it is, again, an opportunity to kind of let people invest in the corridor while at the same time maintaining or preserving the ability to redevelop in the future. So this is a public hearing, and I would request that anyone who has any questions or comments regarding this conditional use permit for the property at 9840 South 27th Street. If you haven't already done so, please fill out an appearance form, give that to the city clerk. Once your name is called, please proceed to the podium and address your comments or questions to the common council. This public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Doug. As Doug said, we will make 3 calls. This will be the first call.
Arden Degler, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I feel that this 27th Street should still be a main artery of access. And I am questioning whether this change includes the construction of a sidewalk. Because, as you well know, all our business parks were planned without a sidewalk. And here we have another sales property without sidewalks?
Well, per se, you could consider it sales, but it's more truck repair, and it is an existing property, so.
I guess I would maybe, Arden, direct you to the plans for 27th Street from just south of Drexel all the way north to the city's border were completed for 27th Street, a state highway project. There are sidewalks, there are multi-use paths on that. So it is our full expectation that, and I believe the designs do bear this out, that when that additional section of State Highway 241 is redeveloped, when it is reconstructed per the state, it will include those features.
But as of now, it's an existing building on an, well, I won't call it an unimproved road, but it's yet to be brought up to the standard that exists north.
It's going to be still a main artery in this county, so.
And it will be, and I think Doug kind of spelled that out, that the plans are still in place to include all that, correct?
Thank you.
Second call. Third and final call. We'll now close the public hearing and move on to item 6, which is a consideration of the ordinance to approve that conditional use permit. Open it up to the council. Questions, comments? Ken?
Doug, can you show me exactly the verbiage on the expiration date or the re-review of the
Absolutely.
CUP?
It is under number 8 on page 3 of 6, duration of conditional use permit.
What, Doug, at that point, what happens? That would just come back before planning, come back before the common council, or?
Yeah, at that point, I mean, it gives the applicant an opportunity to resubmit for that conditional use permit after that 6-year period. So it does give the Plan Commission, the Common Council, an opportunity to, again, weigh in on the use if it's still applicable, given the factors that exist at that point in time. One of the things that, without digressing too far, one of the things about conditional use permits, a lot of them that we've done is they're open-ended. So if, for instance, if a conditional use was adopted in 1955 or, so, I mean, it's still on the books and it will continue to be on the books unless something is done to change that. This reflects more of a notion that certainly as the city transitions, we want to give future councils the opportunity to take a look at that situation at that point in time and to see if those conditional uses are still valid. But at the same time, we need to make sure that the terms are long enough to give the property owners appropriate use of the property.
And the applicant's aware of that?
Yes.
I'm not sure, Dan, if there's anything out of planning. It's been a long process.
Yeah, it actually was brought up at the last Plan Commission meeting. And again, the time was put out there, and some of the commissioners even went for a shorter time, which we didn't think it was absolutely fair on the business either, have to come back all the time, but we thought that was an appropriate number to put out there at 6 years. So that's what it was decided upon, and every 6 years they would just have to come in. And if they're still in business, there'd probably be no reason to deny the conditional use permit if it was working and everything was complied to. So that was the decision of planning and the discussion. Anybody else? Steve?
Doug, you say it's in TID 7. There's no relationship between this and the TIF district. It's just the fact that it's in the district.
It's just geographically within the district.
Thank you.
And again, it did hit planning a number of times because it was part of the overlay district.
Yeah,
27th.
it was a unique
Very
application,
unique.
yes.
It very much was, and we wanted to work with the business to accommodate it and still protect the corridor and the integrity of 27th Street. Chris?
I just wanted to mention that I want to thank staff. They really worked real long and hard to make this come to fruition for this conditional use permit. And if it passes, I think that this reflects on, their hard work, because, we're looking at opportunity here. So if we leave it set, we can just leave it and walk away, or just look at the opportunity there. So I think giving them a chance of the 5 or 6 years that we have on there for conditional use is a good opportunity for them to see what they can do.
Okay. Anyone else? If nothing else, motion, please.
Guzekowski will make a motion to accept ordinance number 2926 to approve a conditional use permit for automobile and truck engine and body repair, outdoor storage of vehicles and outdoor display of vehicles for sale, semi-truck trailer parking on the property of 9840 South 27th Street.
Oracle second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Item 7 is public hearing for rezone consideration for the property at 135 West Forest Hill Avenue. Catherine, if you'd read that in, please.
Certainly, public hearing number 2 is to consider a request by CS Milwaukee LLC Levitt Properties to rezone the property at 135 West Forest Hill Avenue from B3 Office and Professional Business to M1 Manufacturing. Applicant is CS Milwaukee LLC, care of Levitt Properties. Property owner is CS Milwaukee LLC, care of Levitt Properties. Legal description there follows. Date of notice is December 12th, 2018.
Doug?
Thank you. This rezoning application is for the property at 135 West Forest Hill Avenue, most recently occupied by Master Lock. Since they have moved, luckily, still within the city of Oak Creek, to the former Bucyrus or CAT headquarters that left a vacancy there, and the owners of that, or the prospective owners of that property, are looking to reoccupy that building. In their due diligence, they noticed that the building, which actually straddles 2 different property lines, has 2 different zonings. And just the real brief history behind that is, when that building was first developed for Northern Computers, it was developed as an office portion and as kind of a lab portion. And as such, the zoning was a split zoning to reflect the front was office and the back was manufacturing. That development never went through as anticipated, and the building was built and occupied by others, including Master Lock, and it just existed in that state, even though the zoning actually went right through the middle of their warehouse. Not a big deal, but as the due diligence was being performed on this particular transaction, it's just something that we wanted to clean up. So the proper zoning, they wish to have, obviously, the proper zoning in place. The M1 manufacturing zoning district does allow for offices as a permitted use. The office portion will still be used as the office portion. The warehouse portion will still be used as the warehouse portion. This just corrects the zoning map to reflect the actual physical construction of that building.
Right. Thank you, Doug.
With that being said, anyone with any questions or comments regarding the proposed rezoning of this property, again, please approach the podium. I'll give your name, address, and proceed to address your question or comment. The Common Council, this hearing is now open.
Thank you, Doug. We'll make 3 calls. This will be the first call. Second call. Third and final call. We'll now close the public hearing and open it up from questions and comments from the council. Questions, comments? None?
Mayor, Dan,
Go
thanks,
ahead,
Mayor.
Ken.
Yeah, this, obviously very straightforward and from my perspective in terms of making this obviously much more suitable piece of property and eliminating this kind of a headache in terms of our administrative side of it. So I think, especially with potential prospects for this particular building, to move it forward be very appropriate.
Thanks, Ken. Greg?
I would just note some concerns at the planning commission that were brought up by residents. Residents across the street from this property were very concerned with the exterior office portion being completely changed to an all-out manufacturing complex. The representative for the building did note that the desire for this building was how it was laid out already, with office in the front, the warehouse manufacturing in the back, and that any future tenant that they were looking at intends to keep it as is and use it as it already is.
Thank you, Greg. Else? And again, the split zoning did exist on this, and as we find these properties throughout the city and the opportunity comes to correct it, we'll move forward not only with this property, but other ones probably in the near future if the opportunity arises. So this is a great time to get it right. So with that, motion when you are satisfied.
Clerk will move that the council adopt ordinance 2925, an ordinance to approve and rezone the property at 135 West Forest Hill Avenue from B3 Office and Professional Business to M1 Manufacturing.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Item 9 is public hearing for a code amendment to allow restaurants without drive-through facilities as permitted in the mixed-use overlay district. Catherine, would you please read that in?
Certainly, public hearing number 3 is to consider a proposed amendment to section 17.0333 sub A to allow restaurants without drive-through facilities as a permitted use in the OO mixed use overlay district. The proposed code amendment for section 17.0333 sub A would allow restaurants without drive-through facilities as permitted use in the OO mixed use overlay district. Dated notice is December 19th, 2018.
Thank you. Recall that in our first public hearing, we talked about this, the office overlay district on 27th Street, and the reasons why it was put in place, the reasons why it's still there. This is coincidentally just a second situation where we've had some interest in some redevelopment and reuse of existing buildings within that overlay district on 27th Street, most notably one of the restaurants that has been in operation for some time, ceased operation for a year, and individuals want to reopen that. Under the terms of the ordinance and the non-conforming use statute, that would not have been allowed. So as staff started to look at the situation and taking a look at what functions are typically represented in office districts, restaurants are not uncommon in office districts. And staff felt that, and the Plan Commission concurred, that restaurants, in fact, were a desirable use in office overlay districts, provided certainly that there weren't any drive-throughs. So given that, it was staff's recommendation, Plan Commission again concurred, that this office overlay district be amended to allow restaurants as a permitted use, provided that there's no drive-through facilities. This isn't specific to any one property. It covers all the properties in the district. So for instance, if somebody at 9840 wanted to open up a restaurant there, they could do that as well. But it just was needed to be enabled through the amendment of the permitted uses in that overlay district to allow that. Again, public hearing. Anyone with any questions or comments, please approach the podium, proceed to address your comments or questions to the Common Council. This public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Doug. We will again make 3 calls, this being the first. Second call. Third and final call. We'll now close the public hearing and move on to item 10, which is consideration of that ordinance that Doug just described. Questions, comments from the council? Steve?
Doug, who's Josephine Adams and who's she representing? You said it didn't pertain to any parcel, but she has to be somebody from somewhere.
Sure, she has an interest in reopening one of the former restaurant buildings on the corridor.
Are you at liberty to say which one?
I don't know why I wouldn't be. I mean, I don't have a name as far as a future use of, but it's the It's the one that's actually just south of Corporate Preserve Drive. I think it was most recently Mazatlan.
Okay, gotcha. All right, just curious. Thank you.
Ken?
The only reason we're looking at this is because it had been ceased to operate for more than a year.
Absolutely. If it had been operating as a restaurant, they could have continued to operate it under the essentially grandfathered in.
And this zoning overlay, this is only operative on the 27th Street corridor.
That's correct.
Any other potential, as far as you can tell, there's probably relatively few in,
I mean, there's not a lot of applications for existing restaurants there.
yeah.
Although
So this will not have any broad impact. very specific.
likely not.
Cool.
Comment, common sense, as was the case in the rezoning on item number 7 as well, making changes that certainly make it easy. I can't see why you wouldn't want to continue to have a restaurant on 27th Street, free of any kind of zoning that wouldn't allow it to operate without a drive-through. So just common sense. Give them the right to operate as is and move on.
Any other comment? If not, motion, please.
I'll move to approve ordinance 2927, an ordinance creating section 17.0333 sub A sub 12 of the municipal code to allow restaurants without a drive-through facility as permitted use in the Double O mixed-use office overlay district.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Item 11 is informational. It's a summarized treasury's report for the month ending November 30th, 2018, and we have Barb with us tonight.
Good evening. As the mayor said, the report is for the investments in banking as of November 30th, 2018. Attached is a breakdown of the report, but the council report, I've got a summary there. Just a reminder again, I know Alderman Gale likes to remind people that just because we have this amount of money doesn't mean it's all available for spending. Some of it is specified for specific uses. Our beginning balance was $28,690,034.72. Ending balance $31,376,990.87. Interest earned $57,735.13 for an increase of $2,686,956.15. Just a note below that, that even though we didn't have any tax collection, we did get shared revenue of just under $5 million, so that really helped for November.
Questions for Barb? Okay. Item 12 is informational on the city's budget to actual report on the fourth quarter. Bridget.
Wrong one. So in response to the strategic action plan under financial stability, we are bringing the second budget to actual report. So we did one at the 6-month mid-year, and now we are looking at the year-end numbers, or at least the closeout of 2018. And this is an effort to utilize this as a tool to communicate the budget information in another manner, hoping to evolve that communication for you and the residents. So I can't stress enough that these are fourth quarter estimates. I still have to continue completing our year-end journal entries, which is our normal process, but we didn't want to wait too long to be able to give you a feel of where our 2018 year was. So keep in mind that this is a high level on the general fund revenues and expenses, as well as looking at some of our larger funds, solid waste, We Energies, health insurance, EMS, and dispatch. So just a consistent theme here going through when you look at the charts. Your green column is your 2018 year to date. Your blue is your budget. So obviously this chart is, the chart that we want to see every year, where our revenues are exceeding what we budgeted and our expenditures are under what we budgeted. So I'm really not complaining at this point. Delving into those general fund revenues a little bit deeper, we're always going to see at the end of the year that our taxes are, right there at 100%. The other taxes is slightly above budget. That's inflated because I need to move some of that room tax money out that we hold in the general fund. So that will be going to tourism. Shared revenues are right on the money. Continuing, that other governmental aid section is low because we are still waiting on the last payment for the SRO from the school district. That's normal, customary. We move it back into 2018. License and permits, off the charts. Another really significant year. And I, put the caveat out there that this does not include the very large Amazon permit that we took receipt of on January 3rd of 2019. So, we're already off the charts again as we go into 2019. As we continue to look at the public health and safety, for instance, that's way above budget. That's where we put the revenue that we received as reimbursement from IKEA for their opening day ceremony. And that's actually after we moved money to reimburse the overtime accounts in police and fire. This is what we charged for the vehicles that were out there that stayed in the general fund. Commercial revenues, this is probably the first year in quite a while that I'm able to say we received some interest on the money that has been sitting in the accounts of a sizable nature, but some of this will be split out among the other funds, and that entry still needs to be done. So switching to the general fund expenditure side, this is just the general categories of our expenses in the general fund. Everything's running under budget. Again, that's what we want to see. This gives you the general fund expenditures, but more by department or division. So just a few items, to note. We've been holding in the community development budget all of our beginning attorney fees and TIF creation expenses for those 3 new TIF districts, 14, 15, and 16. We just received certification 2 days ago on those districts, so I'll be able to reimburse the general fund and we'll get those expenditures out and that budget will come in line. We are seeing fire department be a little bit over budget here. We still have some expenditures that are year-end typical that have to be moved out and spread out across the We Energies fund. But again, overall, we're operating at a really great level this year. Switching into the major funds that we're going to talk about and the revenue side. As we look at this chart, there isn't anything that's concerning. EMS, we've seen an increase in our call runs, which naturally is actually correlating to an increase in the revenue in the EMS fund. That's great to see. Dispatch, that above budget item here is because we took receipt of the payment for all of the capital expenditures that we put in with St. Francis. So that budget is being reimbursed. Switching to the expenditures, both solid waste and We Energies have a set amount of journal entries here that still have to be done, so those will come closer to the actual budgeted amount. EMS and dispatch will actually come down a little bit because we'll be moving some of the dollars in those funds to We Energies. Kind of a glance at some of the utilities and the fuel running really well. Fuel, we've kind of left that budget where it's been the last few years. You may remember in the 2019 budget process, we kind of started pulling down some of those budgeted items because we've been running really low on the actual fuel expense for the last few years. So that's actually a pretty standard picture here in the last few years. But again, rather see it under budget than over budget.
So Bridget, is that because of a decreased use or a decreased price in fuel?
So for the utilities, you typically don't want to have huge ebbs and flows as we got accustomed to the fuel prices go up and down. So we try to stabilize it. But as we see multiple years of this larger gap, we kind of start popping that budget down gradually over the course of a few years. So we aren't seeing huge ebbs and flows. So that's really, we're just recognizing that we're in, again, another year that's been low. So we can keep looking to reduce that budget. So just, I've already mentioned 2 of these with community development and fire department. As, we look at the general fund revenues compared to the expenses, I'm anticipating that we're going to still be looking at, adding $1 million or so to the fund balance. I mean, our permits were really significant. So we'll look at what type of one-time items can we utilize some of those funds for per our policy, which we've done in the past. And just, that reminder that we have these year-end entries that will adjust this picture, but wanted to let you know that we are in good standing for 2018.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to remind the council that this is the one of several prongs with which we're using per our strategic action plan, which you adopted in June of 2017. Correct? That seems like longer ago.
Summer 17.
Some of that goes to the transparency with which we want to demonstrate our, the financial transparency with which we want to demonstrate to our taxpayers, not only our taxpayers, but also the organization, all of our city staff, communicating our financial position. You'll recall we submitted for and received a budget award for the Distinguished Budget Award from the Government Finance Officers Association, again, which was awarded on our first submission. You'll recall we gave this budget monitoring report in roughly the half year, if you will, in June-ish, and we'll do this, again in June/January every year to continually apprise the public and the council on what our financial position is. And you'll also note that sometime in August, Bridget and I had given you and the public a TIF status report card. And again, just wanted to remind you that these are all strategic action plan items, very much important strategic action plan items, and we're just very happy to demonstrate in good times and bad where we're at, because that's our job, to communicate the financial position of the city to the decision makers in the community and the people who fund the community. So I just wanted to draw your attention back to those elements and remind you that this is another one of those prongs which you directed the staff to kind of undertake to demonstrate your commitment to that transparency. So I want to thank Bridget for putting this together. To close here, though, I would add, and I probably added this in June, if you have any questions or require or seek a different level of detail or a different fund, we would be happy to amend this presentation to suit those needs. So if you want to communicate that offline or in an email, if you wanted to see something else or something look a little bit differently, we would be happy to accommodate that for you. So,
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions, comments from the council? Ken?
Thanks, Mayor. Bridget and Andrew, I think obviously kudos to you folks. I think that the little report demonstrates the strong management and administration of our budget. Really gives the city and our citizenry the flexibility to address things that are priorities, and we appreciate your efforts. Really fantastic job.
I was just going to mention, that the snapshot showing, everything in one page. This is a really useful tool. I know we use it for a lot of different committees and whatnot, but I know Ted, I'm going to point you out because we were talking at our Parks and Rec, how we can help them. They're asking questions. Hey, how are we doing? Are we on budget or not on budget? This is a real good snapshot. So it's just another tool that can be used throughout the year that is very helpful.
Anyone else? Anybody to write? Nothing? No, again, just echo what they said. Great job. Again, really demonstrates to all the constituents out there just what we're doing here. Again, we are the trustees of their tax money. We have to spend it wisely, and I think the numbers show that we're budgeting appropriately the way we're coming out. So good job to all the staff out there and department managers that are helping accomplish that. Because it's not just us putting numbers to paper, it's actually the people out there doing the work, making all the numbers work. So thank you all. We are moving on to Jill and the library presentation.
Evening. So I wanted to come tonight to tell you all about some staffing changes that have occurred over the course, well, actually with the start of the new year. So last year we had some unexpected staff changes that gave us an opportunity to reorganize our staffing structure on fairly short notice. This is in line with the city's strategic goal of evaluating, right-sizing, and better aligning our organization. So Andrew invited me to come tonight to just talk to you a little bit about what those changes occurred, and how those changes occurred, and what came of them. So like I said, we had some unexpected staffing changes at the end of 2018. In July, our full-time children's librarian retired. And in October, our full-time circulation supervisor resigned to take a part-time job still within the library. Both of these employees had been in these positions each for nearly a decade, and both of these changes were incredibly unexpected. This is in addition to the additional full-time librarian that was added as part of the 2019 budget. So we suddenly found ourselves with half of our full-time positions vacant at the library, and so we use this as an opportunity to evaluate our current staffing structure and better align our staffing chart with the library's needs. So our first priority, of course, was to provide continue to provide quality service to our patrons, but we now had that opportunity to realign the staffing structure. So the first thing that we did is looked at some of our goals that we wanted to accomplish through the reorganization. These are increasing the collaboration and innovation among the staff, creating a more efficient staff workflow, improving communication between the staff, providing staff with additional managerial support and feedback, expanding the lifelong learning opportunities for our adult patrons, evaluating library services and aligning them with community needs, and of course, doing all of that within our current budget parameters. Our overarching goal is to help our staff work smarter so that we can continue to research and roll out new ideas and services to the community. So after we identified our overarching goals, we revised our organizational chart with the following updates. So we replaced our full-time children's librarian with a youth services manager who now oversees the children's department and the staffing and the children's staff. We rewrote the job duties for the circulation supervisor and created a new access services librarian position. And we rewrote the job descriptions for 2 of our full-time librarians to create a more generalized reference librarian title for both of those roles. Next, we updated the rest of the library staff's job descriptions, and in some cases, we actually physically moved staff workspaces so that now everyone has their personal desks actually near their direct supervisor and also on the same floor as the public service desk that they normally work at. And lastly, we created teams based on either the type of patrons that our staff serve or the type of job they perform. We reorganized all the staff so they fell into one of 3 teams: adult services, youth services, or circulation services. We then created a library management team made up of myself, the assistant director, who also oversees the adult services department, and the youth services and access services managers. Each of us now oversees these library teams, and it will streamline the decision-making and the communication at the library. That being said, I just wanted to give a little brief overview of these 3 new positions, or of these changes. So the first position is the youth services manager. Like I said, it was created to replace the full-time children's librarian. This position serves as a member of the library's management team and oversees the programming, collection, and services of the children's department. She also supervises our 3 part-time youth services staff and is responsible for coordinating outreach to local schools and child care facilities. Our youth services manager is a great example of what we foresee the rest of the staff organization to do. She started at the end of October, and we've already seen a dramatic change in the way the youth services department operates. Without adding additional staff, she's added 2 additional story times per week, a baby and a toddler story time, and that's in addition to our already popular preschool story time. She's also begun focusing her attention on mentoring the part-time staff to make sure that each story time is based on the 5 practices of early literacy. And each story time will fit the needs of each age group accordingly and be open to everyone so that parents and caregivers can attend the session that best meets their family's needs. She's also created in our children's department an imagination play space to provide creative play for kids and families, which will also open up our story time room for additional programming by both the library and the recreation departments. The new imagination play space is specifically designed for preschool patrons to develop their early literacy and social skills. Each month, the play space will transform into a different theme, such as the market, an ice cream parlor, a bakery, a restaurant, a pizza parlor, or a vet clinic. And lastly, she has also successfully applied for a grant through the Wisconsin Association of Independent Colleges and Universities for the placement of one of their summer interns. WACU, as it is called, will be providing us the funding to host a student intern at 40 hours a week for 10 weeks over the summer at no cost to us. The individual will work in the youth services area and assist with our busy summer programming. Although this position is temporary, it will fill a much needed gap in the youth services department over the summer. Moving on to our access services librarian. Our access services manager was created to replace the circulation supervisor. This position will oversee the circulation department, which for those of you who may not know is the checking in, checking out, and reshelving of library materials. The position was made to be the new position is now a librarian level position because we added more duties and responsibilities to the job description. She will continue to supervise the 6 library aides, but will also add 5 additional part-time staff to that team. She's also going to be responsible for coordinating adult outreach and fostering community partnerships, as well as coordinating and creating new library programs to help us publicize our services. Some of the possible ideas for these programs include developing a National Library Week celebration and working with the Youth Services Manager to make sure that every school-age child in Oak Creek has a library card. Our final major staffing change was to rewrite 2 of our more specialized librarian job descriptions and make both the positions generalized reference librarians, who will share in the duties that those former job descriptions entailed. These newly defined reference librarians will focus on collection development, oversee the library's social media presence, market the library both internally and externally, maintain the library's website, provide adult programming, help patrons with technology questions, and of course, continue to provide reference assistance. By making these positions more generalized, we believe that we'll have a stronger base to continue to build our adult services program. So what's next? Now that we've done all of these changes, now that we have a better staffing structure in place, we're planning on leading the staff and the community in conducting a SWOT analysis of the library services so that we can now focus on creating a long-range plan for the library. The library already gathers a lot of statistics, as many of you get to see every quarter when I include them in my department report. So we know what services we're providing, but now we want to know if we're providing the right services. Are they the services the residents are looking for? So we are planned to host 4 focus groups within the next month and a half. At these meetings, there will be 1 internally for library staff and 3 externally for the public. And at these meetings, we're going to be asking 3 very basic questions. What do you like about the library? What don't you like about the library? And what would you like the library to offer? And then based on that feedback, we can revisit our expectations and assumptions and create a long-range plan. So with that, I'd like to invite all of you to mark your calendars to come to one of our 3 focus groups. They're going to be held on Tuesday, February 12th at 10 a.m., Wednesday, February 20th at 2:30 p.m., and Thursday, March 7th at 7 p.m. So thank you for the opportunity to come and share some of what's going on at the library, and I hope that you will come on down to our focus groups and let us know more about what you like and don't like about the library.
Very good, Jill. Questions for Jill? Comments?
Thanks a lot, Jill. Very informative.
Andrew?
If I could just jump in, Mayor, I forced Jill to give you this presentation. I thought it was just an example of, well, let me back up. I've had the benefit, I know you haven't, I've had the benefit of having Jill bounce all of these various ideas off of me, and obviously budget requests in a formal and an informal setting on her staffing. And I just have to say that I thought it was a really great example of really good vision. You know, this isn't a little bit of a misnomer. You know, this is not a 2019 idea that Jill had. This is a vision that I would imagine Jill has established in her department leadership for many years now, working with the library board. And what had occurred was the opportunity presented itself for Jill to strike and really execute the vision that she's been developing with herself, her team, and the library board. I thought it was just a really great example. I don't know library services, but Jill was able to present to me logical, deductions and logical recommendations on staffing needs and staffing changes. All basically with the exception of the resource inputs that we added in this budget, all under the the operating budget of the library that we really have. So just want to thank Jill. Really, coming together. This is exactly what the strategic plan, action plan item is about when we talk about better aligning, first evaluating and then better aligning the city organizational structure. You've seen it in the health department. You've seen it with the recent promotion of Bridget to assistant administrator controller and the creation of the central services department. There's more coming. We challenge the managers to think this way. I just thought this was a great example. Of course, the council needs to know exactly how we're meeting the needs and demands of the library patrons out there, the taxpayers of the city. This is just a great example of that. It's really well thought out. I think it's really adapting to the changing needs. Jill hadn't had the opportunity to just kind of throw this thing in a tailspin, but with staffing changes and building changes and different configurations, she was able to execute that vision that she's been establishing for this awesome library we have. So thank you, Jill, for the presentation, but more so, thank you for the thought and leadership, with the library board to make these things happen.
Yes. How has the transition, Jill, been going in terms of? I know you have some new replacements and librarians, but how's the staff? How is there? You said teams. You mentioned teams. How are you arriving at the teams? Is it based upon what you guys are choosing as managers, or is it staff input? How are you getting there?
So it's a combination of both. We already did have, to an extent, the teams have been organically evolved just based on the departments that they are in. And like I said, we have 3 public service desks. So each team kind of is the group of individuals that really focus on that public service desk. But within the organizational change, one of the things that we were also able to look at is some of the staff strengths. Like I said, I was jokingly saying that, we have staff members working on the same floor as their supervisor. That literally was not the case until 2 weeks ago. And so that alone, being able to revisit that and really thinking through not only what works best for the community, but also works best for those individual staff members and where their strengths lie. I think that it's been a really positive movement.
Well, that's good to hear, because we want to retain employees. So a happy employee hopefully is that pays dividends. Thank you.
Anyone else, Greg?
I would just also like to commend Jill and the staff at the library for this reorganization as the library continues to grow and expand. At the last library board meeting, she provided some numbers which are actually tell a lot about how much the library is growing. The numbers covered went back 3 years basically, and the number of patrons in 2015, so the last 12 months in the old building. There was about 71,000 visitors this prior year here at this building. That went up to 198,000 visitors. The amount of checkouts in that same time frame have gone up from 241,000 checkouts up to 337 checkouts. So as she said in the meeting, if there's any doubters out there that say that books and physical media is going the wayside, as digital media and streaming comes along, I think the numbers speak for themselves, and I'd like to thank her.
Greg. Anyone else? No? I too, I'm going to be a little bit redundant, but as I was listening to the report, it was obvious. Jill, we're really fortunate to have this young woman head our library. She had an opportunity. It isn't easy when people retire on you or they change career paths in the middle of your budgetary season, but to have the vision, and more importantly, to have the fortitude to take those chances, because the easiest thing to do is just go, we've always done it this way. You plug it back in. Would have been the easiest thing for her to do, is not take that chance. Obviously, she's very progressive, visionary, as Andrew said, to take this and reorganize it, add programs, stay within her budget. Just absolutely phenomenal. Kudos to you, your staff, your board. Couldn't be prouder. Really sharp. And then our library too. I mean, without a doubt, we're drawn from all over. When we built this place, people questioned even why we were building a library. As Greg said, those numbers speak for themselves. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent job. Very good, very impressive.
And I just want to give a kudos to my staff because, again, as you all know, we've done that without a whole lot of increase to staff. And the fact that they're able to keep up really speaks volumes, and that they come to work energetic and enthused and ready to tackle the next challenge.
Yep, and more efficiency. I mean, you put them closer, and again, you're better off trying, and even if it doesn't work, at least you tried it. I mean, we don't set ourselves up for failure, but you never know. And like I say, the easiest thing you could have did is said, well, this is what we always do. We'll just replace it, and we'll move on from there. But again, as things change, as society changes, needs changed, boy, you were really fluid in this one. So congratulations to you and your staff.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to item 14. That is actually a consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a master equity lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management Trust and a maintenance agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management, Inc. Andrew, do you got that one?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I'll start off, and great segue. Speaking of trying new things, this is exactly that, and I guess it's strategic action plan night. I guess as every meeting should be if we're doing things deliberately. But as I've called out in the staff report, our strategic action plan calls out two specific objectives. One is to develop a strategy and long-range funding plan for capital equipment and infrastructure needs. And then two, review fleet lifespan and procurement, and it specifically calls out leasing. Through almost 3 years next month, we've been engaged in discussions. Even the previous administrator before me was engaged in discussions with Enterprise Fleet Management regarding the opportunities that are out there for fleet leasing, vehicle leasing of our fleet. So we talked about a lot of things over the years, but we talked about where we could start. How could we start such a program? Because we thought the merits of such a program were just really strong given where we were in terms of capacity or lack thereof budgetarily of really getting on a rational vehicle replacement schedule. So we determined that we would start in the DPW fleet. We would start with light duty vehicles, 1 ton or less. And we approached the council at budget time about approving a budget for, $90,000 for lifting this opportunity off the ground. And you were so inclined to give us the budget to do so. But as I stated at the budget workshops, we know that we would need to educate you a little bit more as the time came, but we were just asking for you to reserve some capacity for us to do that. The gentlemen in the room tonight from Enterprise, Brett Felsman and Ben Waljasper, will give that overview presentation for you. But we have now had 2 meetings with the Capital Improvement Committee, one at the end of November and one last week. Was that, Ken? Last week? Like much longer ago. To review not only the opportunities and the financial specifics and really the rationale for why we would do this, but also reviewing the actual documents that are before the council tonight for consideration. So if it pleases the mayor and council, I'd like to turn it over to Ben and Brett for a brief presentation, give you kind of the rundown about what Fleet does and what they'll do for us. As I warned you guys, I made you sit through the library reorganization presentation, so that was purposeful. Now you know all about our library. But I may also jump in your presentation and just make a couple points, so hopefully you don't mind. So the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you. Really To give you just a brief overview of Enterprise, as a company, obviously, we're a little more well-known for our rental division. But as a fleet management company, we own, lease, and manage over 27,000 vehicles here in the state of Wisconsin and over 2 million as a company throughout the U.S. And really what has become a trend in the government space is taking advantage of a fleet management program with experts like us to make sure you're doing the right things in terms of buying the vehicles at the right time, selling them at the right time, and not sinking too many extra operational costs into the vehicles by running them so long. And today, obviously, as it was already explained, over the years, your fleet is considerably aged, specifically in the public works, on average over 14 years old per truck. And our goal here today is to show you how we're going to help the city get into a healthier replacement cycle and drive down operational costs and overall budgetary needs to fund these vehicles for the job. So what is listed here are just some of our other local government agencies that we're working with today here in the state of Wisconsin. So you'll see cities up there, you'll see counties, other specialty districts that are taking advantage of our services to help do just that. And that is allow us to help you run better fleets and drive down the cost to do so.
Insert number one, Ben.
What's that?
I said interjection number one. I asked this question already knowing the answer at the CIP meeting. If you could just flip back to that slide.
Yeah.
Me doing this for over 10 years now, working in local government, 3 years ago, I think I said 5, and you said, no, probably more like 3. There is not that book of business in the local government sector as you, not only that you work with, but just the growing trends of fleet vehicle leasing. That list 3 years ago, even, a couple of these are on there maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that demonstrates, a similar position financially that local governments find themselves in. And it also demonstrates finding new ways to manage assets. And I think that we're not on the front end of this trend, which I think is important in some instances. But we're also not the only people not doing this. So I think it's over time it's starting to prove itself as a viable alternative to outright acquisition. And I should say that as we go through this presentation, don't view this through the lens of the personal decision that we make sometimes to lease a vehicle or own a vehicle, because it's a completely different context, and you guys will shed light on that point throughout the presentation. So I'll throw it back to you, I guess.
Yeah, to that point, the reason this model works is because of how well you can buy vehicles as a city. The general public can't buy vehicles as well. You also don't pay sales tax, and you drive a low amount of miles per year. You factor all that in, and you put into a model. If you sell vehicles at the right time, you don't sink a lot of maintenance dollars into those vehicles. You're running fuel-efficient vehicles that aren't running on bad mile per gallons and costing the city more and more gallons of fuel. That's how this makes financial sense. So, yeah, to your point, Andrew, 3 or 4 years ago, we probably had about 5 government agencies we were working with. Now we're over 25, just in the past 2 years, 2.5 years.
One thing I will add to that is that to start the 2019 calendar year, we do have 2 approvals already from other government entities as well too. So as Andrew said, the momentum for this program is definitely picking up.
This is more just a timeline and overview of obviously the time invested in terms of due diligence and really doing the research by leadership here in the city. Obviously, this initial conversation started back in February of 2016. And through time here, we've patiently worked with you guys to try to make sure you're comfortable with moving forward with a plan like this. So we're obviously very excited today to be able to explain it to you and show you, the capabilities that we're going to have getting this off the ground for you. Overview of just really, again, identifying why this is important to the city and where Enterprise really fits in to help. So a lot of times we don't always think about the importance of these vehicles. We think whatever's in the capital budget to purchase the vehicle, hang on to it as long as we possibly can until the wheels fall off, and then replace it at that point. What we're going to help you do is do a little better job of replacing those vehicles to improve these areas. So from the safety and risk exposure of the city, making sure you have up-to-date safety technology, from backup cameras, side impact airbags, things of that nature, electronic stability control, that you don't have on your fleet of trucks today. Obviously, productivity is a big deal. Less downtime on these trucks. What we're going to be able to help with just the efficiencies of mechanics and things of that nature within the city are going to not only improve the downtime, but also get jobs done at a much better clip and a much more effective rate. Enterprise obviously fits in a number of different ways, being able to help with high and low seasons. So if you have different times of year where you need more vehicles or need less, we obviously can either rent you them for short-term usage, or you can put them as a part of our lease plan. So a lot of flexibility with this, and again, the idea is to fit this in the budgets that you already have. You're not having to go out and get more dollars to fund this. As a team, we're going to meet with you at least twice a year to do planning, and that is to make sure, again, like I mentioned, that you're selling vehicles at the right time in the market, and that you're relying on a company like Enterprise to help you sell them for the most value. Because with these leases, the city owns the equity rights to the lease. So the more that we can help you sell the vehicles for, the more money the city has coming back to continue this as a sustainable plan. Continue to have those funds available to replace vehicles, and it's not just all money going out the door to lease these vehicles for the short term or long term. So you'll see an overview of what we're going to be really collecting from a data perspective, and then some of the consultation that we'll do for you on an annual basis, and really evaluate each vehicle on a vehicle by vehicle basis. So it's not just a cookie cutter, you're replacing vehicles every 2, 3, 4 years. We're looking at each vehicle based on its market and when it makes the most financial sense to replace, and also operationally when it makes the most sense for the city to replace. Our initial plan to get started here, as you can see, we've identified the 24 light duty vehicles in the DPW. As we brought this to the table, you'll see there the city alone was paying over $27,000 in parts and labor. With the amount of miles you're driving on these 24 vehicles, that's an extremely high amount of money to be sinking into these trucks to keep them on the road. You've also gone through over 9,500 gallons of fuel, a high amount again for the amount of miles you're driving. A lot of that comes from some of the vehicles that have been passed down from other departments, such as police, that just aren't as fuel efficient of vehicles as could be in the usage for what the job needs to be done. So our plan that we've put in place here is to more than cut that cost in half within the first year in terms of what you're going to spend in maintenance alone over these 24 vehicles in DPW. So, and then fuel in terms of gallons, in terms of a green initiative and just helping the city go through fewer gallons of fuel by replacing an average age of 14-year-old trucks with brand new trucks, your fuel economy will go up, and obviously the city will be going through less amount of fuel by doing so as well. And really, this is just kind of the last overview of Enterprise and how well we sell vehicles. So obviously, a big part of this and how it makes financial sense is selling vehicles at the right time for the right return. So we sell to over 100 buyers here in the state of Wisconsin alone, a lot of local dealers, independent dealers. And what we're doing with them is really pitting themselves against each other to drive up the return. And you are gaining on that, again, being an equity lease within the city. So what we're doing is putting your asset in front of a lot of different potential buyers and drawing up that return so that, again, this is a more sustainable plan to be able to replace vehicles, and you're not sitting there with a need to get 6 vehicles with a $60,000 budget in place. That's really the idea behind it, and these are some of the avenues that we use to help make sure that we're maximizing your return, obviously in your best interest. Next steps for us here is to finalize the specifications on the initial orders of the trucks. We build these specifically for the city and place the orders directly through the manufacturer. So we get you the features that you only need. You're not paying for extra bells and whistles on these vehicles that are unnecessary to help keep costs down and in line. Executing paperwork is what we need to then obviously place the orders. There's typically a 3 to 4 month lead time. So meaning when we place the orders, the manufacturers will take that time obviously to build, ship, and deliver those vehicles through local dealers here in the city. And then obviously from the delivery perspective, we help with we help with as much of aftermarket that you guys would like us to help with. So in terms of putting light bars on trucks, snow plows on the vehicles. For the trucks that do need plows, we're able to help assist with that as well, just to streamline this and make life easier internally within the city. So, and once we have the vehicles on order, then we obviously schedule really all of the implementation of the program. So making sure that the city is set up on our customized website for the tracking, billing, all of that information on these vehicles, getting the maintenance program rolled out, in which we're going to be leveraging local service shops to service these trucks. So obviously it's a segment of the city's vehicles, but we're going to be putting some business back out into the general public to be doing the repairs on these vehicles for you, and then obviously setting expectations for what you want from us as your fleet consultant. That's really the summary of what we wanted to cover today, and obviously we'd be welcome to any questions that you may have or clarifications.
And if I could just ask you, if you have it handy, could you pull up the overall kind of budget plan for those 14 vehicles?
Yeah.
If you have that electronically, I can kill some time here if you want. If you could pull that up on the screen, I don't know that you do.
Okay.
If not, it's fine.
I don't know if I have it
That's okay.
electronically on my computer.
That's fine. What we're again, just to recap, what we're looking at doing is really getting into a leasing rotation with 14 of our vehicles. Council had given us a $90,000 budget. That budget, we won't meet that budget this year because of the timing it will take us to get the vehicles delivered. If we were to have started the 14 vehicles, if we were to have taken delivery of them on January 1, that same proposal for those 14 vehicles would have been in the order of $101,000. So next year, as we budget, if we do nothing more, we only have to come up with $11,000. And I'm not projecting that we're not going to do more. I think this is kind of a multi-phased approach to the leasing program and getting this going and at least rounding out the DPW fleet. But I just wanted to say that you don't have to do anything more. Council has all the flexibility in the world next budget to say, we love the leasing thing. We love the fact that you did it for the 14 vehicles. Let's take a year off. Let's never do that again. Andrew, you were so off in your judgment of bringing these guys into the city and having them be our fleet consultant. I don't think we'll see that. Of course, this has been vetted for many years and multiple staff through the mechanics and through Ted's leadership at DPW. But I just wanted to let you know there's plenty of off ramps on this thing for you if that helps your comfort level at all in starting a vehicle leasing program here in the city of Oak Creek. So I thought I'd throw that in. There's plenty of exit strategies, and you're not signing up for 90,000 this year and then 120 and then 160 in this 3-year process. It's not that at all. So I thought I'd throw that out to the council for consideration.
We open for questions, comments. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little bit skeptical on the lease program. I'm a little bit more open to the fact that it's only going to be the DPW because, as I explained to Andrew, I have some personal or professional past history with another department that I worked with the fact that I think we enjoy the police vehicles. They end up as a hand-me-down to inspections and engineering, and by the nature of the work that they do, I believe those vehicles are perfectly suited for going into construction sites and stuff like that and getting dirty and everything. So I think that works well. So Andrew says, well, we're only going to do it with the DPW. And I'm going to mention some of my concerns. One of them with the presentation. Guys, you totally didn't mention employee retention. I don't see how employee retention fits with the lease program. Can you tell me, 35 years in federal law enforcement, and the car that I drove had nothing to do with keeping me there on the job. So can you explain how employee retention fits into the program?
Yeah, it's essentially viewed as treating is giving your employees better equipment to use. So from that point of view, it'd be deemed as a benefit to obviously the employee as feeling they're being treated better than given a 20-year-old truck versus a 1-year-old truck. And then also with the safety features, having standard power windows, locks, cruise control, backup camera, and 4-wheel drive, I would think would be something that an employee would enjoy more than having a 4x2 truck with crank windows and manual locks, I guess would be kind of the point.
That part of the statement I agree with, but yeah. I don't think employee retention is that big of an issue. Now, in our Common Council report, we have item on number 4, it says financial savings due to less maintenance, repair costs, city mechanic, it goes on and on. But in item 8 on the lease, it says that we're responsible for, at least the way I read it, to maintain the vehicles in good condition, repair, maintenance, and running order. So are we paying, maybe I'm missing something in reading this, but are we paying for the general maintenance and the upkeep and the stuff like that of these vehicles, or are you guys paying for it?
Yeah, so there's actually, the maintenance is included in the lease. So basically the city is covered for all oil changes, tire rotations. Really, you're completely off the hook for any maintenance repairs at all required on these vehicles. The only items that you're not covered for are wearable items, which are just tires and brakes.
Okay.
So that would just to clarify that for you.
So this item 8, does that apply or doesn't apply? I mean, I don't want to get.
I think it's maybe a distinction that can be made between repairs versus maintenance. What we would be avoiding is those more time consuming if we're doing it in-house, but certainly more costly repairs of, other than standard. And I'm not a car guy, but your starters, your alternators, your gas pumps, those types of things that we avoid because, even tires we're not going to have to be rotating because we'll very likely be rotating these vehicles out. I mean, absolutely we'll be rotating these vehicles out before they need tires. So some of those repairs that you will see on a vehicle that's 8 through 15 years old that we're hanging on to, those are the types of things that we'll avoid. In the maintenance plan, we are the cost of those routine items is included in that leasing cost, in that $90,000 this year and $101,000 next year.
And the last item I want to talk about is when you mentioned equity rights in these vehicles. Apparently, when the lease is up, they get sold, and the city gets money. Correct? Now, understanding the way these vehicles are going to be used, I mean, they're going to install radios in these cars, these trucks probably, light bars, which means when you pull them off, there might be holes in the roof that have to be plugged. If the trucks show up with carpeting versus rubber floor matting, I can imagine what DPW vehicles are going to look like after 3 years. So, and this kind of goes to Ted. If we're going to be leasing vehicles and we're going to be hoping that they look somewhat decent after a 3-year lease, it's incumbent upon us to not only make, as you say, make them, the image on the outside of the trucks will make the city look better. But I don't want to lose money because the people driving these trucks, they're good people, but the nature of their job takes them into spots where they're going to be traipsing dirt and crud and stuff like that, and might be eating their lunch in these cars and not cleaning up after themselves. If we don't keep the insides of these vehicles neat and clean and tidy, then we stand to lose money when we resell them because we're not taking care of the inside of the vehicles. Have you seen that happen when you've had these trucks come back where they've been misused and abused by the lease, these people that you've had these cars? And if so, how does it affect the resale value?
Well, that's a very good point. Our business prior to the government space really being our largest growing industry, it was 70% in the construction and contracting industry. So we're dealing with a lot of cargo vans, pickup trucks that are on job sites all day. We're definitely in the fleet industry. We're not in if you want to call it executive leasing or fleet industry. So we're very comfortable with vehicles being returned in very rough shape. We actually, whenever we've discussed numbers with leadership here, we assume rough condition for all trade-in or returned vehicles. Anything better than that will be more dollars brought back to the city. To answer your point directly in terms of financial implications, the interior of the vehicle is not as much of a concern, because who we're selling these vehicles to, again, are dealerships who know they're going to have to put time and money into them before they can retail and sell them to the general public. So it's very, very well known, and it's very well expected that these trucks are going to be brought back with wrappers, dirt, dust, all on the interiors. There's no expectations or I guess if you want to say from a leasing perspective, any type of a requirement in terms of condition. Even if you do have damage to the vehicle, obviously who we're selling these vehicles to, they can repair a vehicle for a lot less than we can charge you or you can on your own. So if let's say it's a $1,500 damage to one of your trucks from hitting a light pole or whatever that damage is, that's not going to impact your resale by $1,500.
Okay.
Because who's buying it as a wholesaler, they know they're going to have to put, a $700 repair into it or $500. So it's definitely, you bring up really good points there, because obviously these are government leases. These are not an executive lease where we're going to be taking a fine tooth comb through any scratches or things of that nature. We know they're going to be dings, dents, things of that nature on these trucks.
Okay. I'm willing to take a chance with this venture to see how it works. I just had these concerns I wanted to get out in the open. So I'm not trying to say anything bad about the DPW employees. They're hardworking, and their job takes them into places where they're going to get back in the car, and it's going to mess up the inside of the car. So that we all have an understanding of what's going to happen when these vehicles get turned back in. Maybe it's just something to keep in the back of our mind that if we trash we may not get as much as if we try and keep them somewhat cleaner or whatever. So that's basically all I have. Like I said, I'm willing to take a chance with the DPW part and move on from there, I guess.
If I could respond, Mr. Mayor, I expressed very similar points to the points you made, and I've actually talked with Ted, about a procedure for maintaining the vehicles, stricter no smoking policies, those types of things in the vehicles. I think we will get that out of our employees who take a little more pride in quasi ownership here. A nicer vehicle, hopefully you'd think that we're giving them newer, safer equipment, that they'd help us help them prolong and really rotate these vehicles out so they can continue to have nice new equipment to do their jobs. I think Ted had mentioned also you guys had rehabbed an old shop vac from a car wash or something, and you installed it at DPW. So I thought that was a good step forward. But certainly, I'll work with Ted and make sure there's at least a routine type of a thing to not let the routine stuff build up and affect the resale of the vehicle. You had also made a point, Alderman Kirkowski, on the aftermarket activities and products and safety features essentially that need to go on these vehicles. And you came at it from the bent of how might that affect resale, and I think that was explained. That's commonplace to have holes in the roof where the light bars go and those types of things. But could you guys, and we had a lot of conversation about this, could you guys demonstrate or articulate to the council where we landed on how we wanted to handle those aftermarket features that we need on these pieces of these vehicles?
Yes, so basically in the proposal, we've given allowances for aftermarket equipment on every vehicle. So ranging from trucks that just need light bars to trucks that need plows. And then we'll be using local vendors here to basically install all that equipment so that when they show up to the DPW shop, all that really needs to be done is decaling that truck, and it will be road ready to be used.
And that is included in the budget proposal that we're putting forward as well.
We
wanted to make it as simple as possible, for nobody else other than for me, to have basically a turnkey, vehicle delivered that we could get on the road and use as soon as it has a license plate on it. So that's really where we wanted to settle with Enterprise to make sure that kind of everything was considered and all costs were in with the proposal we gave the council.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I forgot one point, Mayor, if I could. I'm sorry, Mike. Steve, you had also mentioned, and we did have a conversation, it doesn't make sense for certain sectors of our fleet to engage in a leasing program. Police vehicles are one. Very, very high mileage. Right now, we have kind of an okay thing going with how we're rotating those vehicles from the PD into the inspection and engineering fleet downstairs. Inspectors and engineers always need a Yukon or a Tahoe? I would argue no. But as we communicated back and forth, Chief Anderson's idea, and I think the trend is to go towards a smaller police vehicle. So maybe those will be more appropriately sized, and we can continue that hand-me-down approach. The hand-me-down approach doesn't cost the city much in rotating them through the inspection and engineering fleet downstairs. So that's probably makes most sense for the city financially to continue that. But we'll keep looking at that. That's the reason, specialized vehicles in the fire department, another example, may not work. We haven't really studied the fire fleet, but that may not work. We did take a look at the utility fleet and including those vehicles. As you might suspect, those vehicles are relatively new. They're average age of 2014 versus 2004 in our DPW. So, there wasn't a ton of interest there. So we'll continue to keep looking at that. But I think, this year, and if we're also inclined as a leadership team next year, we'll continue to just look at the DPW fleet and kind of gauge how things are going and how we like, the rotation of these vehicles, kind of buy low, sell high, and our consultation, consultantship with fleet, if you will.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why we picked the DPW was because of the segment of vehicles that we have in that segment there. The pickup trucks that are in that segment are essentially something that the city buys very well and that Enterprise knows we can sell very well as well too. So we fully realize that this is our opportunity to, not only please the DPW, but hopefully to earn your business citywide as well through other avenues. So we did strategically pick the DPW, knowing that this is an area that we do very well in buying and selling the vehicles and really lowering the city's total cost of ownership.
Mike, you had a question?
Yeah,
Otherwise, I have. Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Obviously, if we're getting 14 new vehicles, we're turning in 14, correct? Do we have a number on what those vehicles that we're turning in are worth? How does that work as far as us recovering the equity we already have? Does that get incorporated into the lease, discount on the lease, or how does that work?
Well, I guess right now we have the estimated values of the vehicles that will be turned in. At this point, we have it structured for you to get those funds back, to be able to do whatever you want with those dollars.
So that has nothing to do with the lease payment, the equity that we're going to. Okay, do you have a number on that? What those vehicles are worth? Is that the plan to put the equity back into toward this program? Is that how?
We have options. So I heard Ben reminded me that when we looked at, do we want to downsize the lease costs and use this equity in our presently owned vehicles to downsize those lease costs, or do we want to have a leasing budget that doesn't incorporate what the return will be for the vehicles that we're turning in? So I think he's going to give you the number on those, and that is not, Ben, just clarify again, that is not downsizing the leasing proposal, the leasing costs. We have the ability to use that money as we see fit for.
Correct. Yeah. None of that money is factored into the initial lease payments that we have set forth today. I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but I believe with the 14, I know it's over $30,000 that you would be getting back in return.
And one thing I would say with that $30,000, that ballpark number there, is that is a sight unseen value. So essentially that is, VIN numbers and mileage that we have on the vehicle. So what we find a lot of times is actually if we get the vehicle and we do sell them, we do outpace that. So we are, I guess, essentially putting a number on it before we've seen the actual truck. So we are hoping to outpace that as well too.
What kind of equity buildup? Tell us a little bit more about that on the lease payment over the years. Is there a formula you guys use? Or?
So what we do is in our office, we have a resale director who's in charge of selling all of our customers' vehicles. So he puts conservative future estimated values on the trucks that we're leasing you. So with that being said, we've structured these initial leases on 36-month terms, so 3-year leases. And the very conservative estimate amount of equity at term is over $140,000. So we're taking today, where you only have about $30,000 in equity, and moving you into a position where you have over $140,000 in equity to help this become a more sustainable plan and allow you the funds to replace these vehicles when you should be, essentially is how it's working.
Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. One question, one comment. Steve, I had questions in regard to the warranty as well. Was explained for the most part, but in regard to the repairs, Ted, do we do all the major repairs in-house or do you send them out? Andrew had mentioned starter, brakes,
Our
transmission.
mechanics
drivetrain.
do all the repairs.
They do, okay.
To our vehicles. The only ones that we don't do are maybe some specialty things like maybe a transmission or something like that.
Okay, thank you. And then just a comment in regard to Alderman Kurkowski's concerns about the resale of some of the vehicles that are being returned. I have colleagues of mine and family members that are contractors, plumbing contractors, electrical contractors, vertical boring specialists. Steve, I'll tell you what, no matter how blemished a vehicle is, the contractors probably, they look forward to receiving vehicles such as that because it provides cost efficiency to them while still allowing a significant upgrade to equipment that they currently have. So I think you guys, there's a huge market for this, regardless of how those vehicles are being turned back in. So really, I don't have any concerns about resaleability of vehicles that we're turning back in. So just one comment and one question. So thank you.
Greg, anything? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. It's been interesting to be part of this process. It's kind of middle of last summer, just kind of rhetorically kind of kick the tires on the program and learn a lot about how it economically makes sense for cities. Cities historically don't do fleet replacement very well and stuff that typically gets put off. I think the oldest vehicle in this fleet, I think, is a 1992 vintage. So that tells you, in fact, that vehicles will hang around, whether or not it makes sense to hang them around until they actually just die in the lot, basically. So, and this, from a budgetary standpoint and a planning standpoint, just kind of finally puts in place a program to make sure we're upgrading our fleet and maintaining a robust and effective fleet. Jerry Peterson, for those who were around when he was administrator, had warned us how delinquent we were in our replacement schedules for all of our capital equipment, our vehicle needs. So this is a great program, I think, from my standpoint, to finally initiate and move forward on in terms of making it an ongoing planning and budgetary exercise. It eliminates the maintenance side of it. Ted's mechanics can get on with doing stuff that is more important than doing the low life maintenance on 14 pickup trucks. I mean, it serves the I think it's a good image upgrade for the city as a whole to have newer vehicles out there representing the city. For Alderman Kurkowski, I think it actually does well for the employees in terms of morale and image, in terms of having them in vehicles that portray a good image, and obviously from the quality and safety and efficiency of the vehicles for 25-year-old vehicle versus something that's brand new in terms of how it operates. It's reliable, it's effective, it's safe. I think all those are very good attributes, and I think this is a good way to start a program to really kind of actually, hopefully, it makes more sense and economically justifies itself to roll it out even further.
One last question, if I may, that just came up. My apologies. Is the lease agreement, is it tied to you taking the old vehicles, or would we be able to consider the possibility of putting those out? I know, isn't there the state or public auction where you resell equipment? And I've heard of I don't know of a lot of them, but I mean, I've heard of cases where, you know, it's been beneficial to the community or the entity to pursue that area, doing the public auction.
We have had those discussions, and I guess I'll turn it over to you guys to answer that. I think all avenues are on the table, though.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys have full rights to decide.
Oh, okay,
if
so
you-
it's
if
not
you
tied
want-
to you getting our
Correct.
old
Yep.
vehicles. Okay.
So at any
Thank
given,
you.
on each vehicle, you can either choose to sell it on your own at an auction,
Mhm.
or you can turn it to Enterprise and then we sell it on your behalf.
Okay,
So
thank
that's
you.
how that works.
Can I close with dropping a surprise on the council?
Oh, yeah?
I've been here a couple years now, but I understand this is a thing. You know what's not good for resale? Take a guess.
Really old cars?
Orange. Orange. So we are going
Really
to have
old
to
orange
deviate. We are going to have to deviate a little bit from our standard orange in the DPW. So I thought,
Silver.
in case anybody's really emotional about that, I'll stay late tonight if you want to talk about it. But that's not great for the resale value as they've warned us. So we will probably go to a standard white vehicle.
We could sell them the KEI. I mean,
You could. That'd be about it. Maybe the county highway department or something too. They can have our hand-me-downs. But I just thought I'd throw that out there, just in case that had some bearing on your decision here this evening.
So with that being said, most of the important questions that I had were answered along the way. Alderman Gale really made a point. We've kind of been falling behind on vehicle maintenance, and we kind of scramble at budget time, figuring out where we're going to get it from, depending on what department it is. I think it is a good step in the right direction. I guess the one thing with the maintenance program, Ted, your guys currently maintain your fleet of 14, as well as police, fire, and water, and what have you. With the maintenance going away, the daily stuff, and I mean the oil changes and the tire rotations and what have you, how does that impact your mechanics?
Well, this isn't a huge part of their day-to-day work. I mean, they'll have more time to work on some of the bigger trucks and stuff like that. Also, in the future, we may not have to add a mechanic. We'll have to see how it works out.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to know with them taking over the maintenance program. And then, I guess with the maintenance program, when they are scheduled to go in, do you guys take them for the day, do the whole works, the rotation, whatever is needed on that truck, so it's not out of service for a week, 3 days?
Yeah, so how it will work is we will basically issue you the reminders of when a vehicle is due for service. And then I know Ted had talked about working with a shop that wants to do business directly with you to coordinate getting those vehicles back and forth. So the idea is an oil change, tire rotations, I mean, are really going to be the main repairs that are going to be done to these vehicles. So all very short-term type repairs where they'll be back in your hands quickly.
So is that up to us to put up the RFPs, or do you supply us with a list of vendors that we can choose from?
We have a list of vendors that are already preferred vendors here in the city that are very close to where the shop is.
I think you had noted 3 within a mile or a mile and a half at the DPW shop.
Yeah, within 2 miles.
Yeah, 2 miles. So.
Okay. That's all I really have. So, with that, if there aren't any other questions or comments, we can entertain a motion.
Gail move to approve resolution 12027-011519, approving and authorizing execution of a master equity lease agreement with Enterprise FM Trust and a maintenance agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management, Inc.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 15 is consideration of a motion to concur with the mayor's appointments to celebrations. Please take a look at the application if there's any questions, comments. If not, motion.
Gail move to concur with the mayor's appointment as listed.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Item 16 is consideration of a motion to purchase a 2019 Braun ambulance with a Ford chassis. Here with us is the fire department, so welcome, chief.
Yeah,
This is a follow-up from the budget CIP, which was scheduled for the $275,000 for the new ambulance that was approved back then. There has been no change in our budget that allowed us, and the final cost, as you can see, was listed at $269,000, and the rest would be the loose equipment that we need, from technology to brackets and items like that. Assistant Chief Havey here was the main driver behind this, and I think he can update you on a couple items in regards to this that are unique from before.
As presented in 2018, we requested the purchase for a new ambulance with a power load system and a power load stretcher. So that's a change from the previous ambulances we bought. We focused on making sure that our equipment with the power load and mechanical systems and that technology we can utilize, that takes a lot of the stress and the physical demands off the care providers out in the field. So if there's any other specific questions to the power load systems themselves, I can take those.
Questions?
And
Ken?
just globally, Tom or Mike, can you give us the vintage of the frontline ambulances now? Have we replaced all of our frontline ambulances in recent times?
This is the last one that will be the front line. Everything else, even the reserve, are still over 130,000 miles roughly. So over time, there will be a gap before we go back, but each station now will have a unit that's 3 years or less once we put this one into
What is the
service.
oldest reserve unit, Tom, you're still running?
06, same model that we're going to get rid of. And the only the change that came up since the budget time was, as Mike ran across, we're looking to sell the reserve one, but also METC has got wind that we're looking to do, and there could be some horse trading that goes on with METC to help out the students there for educational purposes. So we use their tower. They're rebuilding their tower at millions of dollars. So if we come back to you and say, hey, we'd like to swing that over, I think it's a good relationship that we've built over the years.
So have we've effectively replaced, I think it was the Fords that were the ones that had the rough ride?
Well, the Freightliners, yeah, they're gone, thank God, yes. In fact, we got rid of, when we got one new one, we got rid of 2 of those, yes. So, yeah, that was an interesting time period.
Thanks, Steve.
Tom, I was going to ask if the old one was going to be sold on auction, like that online auction, but you hinted at giving it to the school district for something?
METC, right, yeah, their EMS classes, paramedic classes. You got to remember is the county's kind of gotten out of even the paramedic education. METC is teaching all the paramedic classes, even with the city of Milwaukee. City of Milwaukee used to get done by the county paramedic, and now they're doing it plus our entry-level EMS classes.
I think it would be best if you're not going to sell it because that's equity that the city could derive benefit from versus giving it to METC that maybe we ought to know about that ahead of time.
Well, yeah, that's what we're still kind of doing the horse trading talk.
Okay.
So, yeah, before we do that final item, we will be back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions concerning the ambulance? If none, motion. Bless you.
Clark will move to approve the purchase of a 2019 Braun ambulance with a Ford chassis from North Central Ambulance and related equipment.
Dukniak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Item 17 is consideration of a resolution approving the final subdivision plat for Eastbrook Preserve.
Thank you. Eastbrook Preserve is the first phase of the subdivision, is a 32-lot phase. Preliminary plat was approved by the Plan Commission and Common Council. The improvements have been put in, and as I understand it, with the exception of some last-minute things that are still going on, but to the satisfaction of the engineering department, they're in good shape, ready to go, anxious to sell lots, and again, checking off one of those boxes on our strategic plan with respect to kind of increasing the inventory of single-family lots in the city. So staff's recommendation is that the council approves that resolution approving the final plat for East Brook Preserve.
All right, any questions on the new subdivision for Doug or the applicant?
Just comment, Mayor Dan, Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. I have had no contact or communication from 3rd District residents with concerns or comments on the East Brook Preserve development. So if there are no additional comments or questions, I would certainly be open to making a motion for adoption.
I did, ask
I'll
Doug
go ahead,
for
Ken.
one clarification. Hey Doug, do you know off top, or Mike maybe even know, the previous outlots, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are anticipated to be new building lots? Do you know where, are they part of this new grid, or is that the second phase?
Second phase.
Second phase?
I believe.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Cool. I'm good.
I think that's what we went over at planning.
Okay.
But they're, yeah.
That's all I know.
Okay, go ahead, Rich. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
Dukniak moved to adopt resolution number 12026-011519, which approves a final subdivision plat for East Brook Preserve, Phase 1.
Oracle second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Item 18 is the license committee. I'd like to turn that over to Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Trust that everybody has had a chance to review the items on the Common Council report with regards to the License Committee. Nobody has any questions, or does anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing none, Kirkowski make a motion to adopt the License Committee recommendations as listed on the January 15, 2019 License Committee report.
Dukniak second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Item 19, our vendor summary report. So, everybody please take a look. Bridget is here to answer any questions, or if they're engineering, we can put Mike on the spot. Any questions? Sorry about that little side conversation.
You're concerning me.
No, you know,
Too much chatter. I'm
you know,
worried now.
I just had a question. I should have pointed it out, but I was just wondering where a particular business was in Oak Creek called Discount Smokes and Spirits. Is that a business change its name?
I don't know, vendor summary.
I would have to pull up the application. I'm not sure if an LLC changed the name.
Okay. We'll look into that for clarification. I have no
But I don't
idea.
think they sell alcohol.
But anyways, back to the vendor summary. Any questions on vendor summary? Sorry,
That is
sorry
not
about
on
that. I
vendor
totally
summary for the
blew
record.
that one.
Controlled in?
No discount smoke.
Yeah, okay. We got 19?
If there's no questions on 19, motion, please.
I'll move to approve the December 21st, 2018 vendor summary report in the combined total amount of $321,898.65.
Guzekowski, I'll second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
And item 20
Aye.
is our January.
What did you
What's that?
I don't know, you didn't.
I said aye. You had some weird pronunciation.
Item 20 is consideration of a motion to approve the January vendor summary report. And again, we have two because we did suspend the meeting January 2nd. So please take a look. Sorry for the distraction.
What about the number question on number 7?
Maintenance work on the fire department doors. Chief, that was an emergency repair, correct?
Yeah, that's the new fire station. That's the garage door situation that we still haven't resolved with Stephen Chamberlain, who's supposed to be working on that for us. Basically, the door just about fell off the wall is what happened.
Oh, no.
And there's extra brackets and springs, and it was about a 3-day repair to get it back up and running.
Have we had contact with Mr. Chamberlain? Can we get him in for a meeting?
Yeah, there's been several meetings with them, CCI, and there's been really no movement on it for the 3 years running, Dan. Yeah.
Do a follow-up.
Any other questions on item 20? If not, motion, please.
I'll just note that the dollar amount contains obviously a couple large development agreement payments that are annual in nature there, so that has boosted the kind of bottom line figure. With that said, though, I will move to approve the January 9th, 2019 vendor summary report in the combined total amount of $1,593,684.50.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Item 21, consideration of a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute to discuss the following. Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent G, to consider the claim of Welcome Food LLC for the recovery of unlawful taxes on the property at 9540 South 27th Street, and B, Section 1985, Parent 1, Parent E, to consider an amendment to tax increment number 11 Finance Development Agreement and Phase 3 Agreement for Emerald Road Development, and C, Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, and Parent F to update the Common Council on a duty disability claim. Common Council President Gale.
Thank you, Mayor. Gail will move to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State statute to discuss the following. A, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub G, to consider the claim of Welcome Foods LLC for recovery of unlawful taxes on the property at 9540 South 27th Street. B, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, to consider an amendment to tax incremental District Number 11 Finance Development Agreement and Phase 3 Agreement for the Emerald Road Development. And C, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub C, and F, to update the Common Council on a duty disability claim.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye. We'll now convene into closed session and return at its conclusion.
Gail will move to reconvene in open session.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call. If you're ready but you. Sorry, Catherine.
No, I thought I was. Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye. Item 21, item 8, I'm sorry, 23. It's consideration of authorizing recession of personal property taxes for the property at 9540 South 27th.
Gail will move to approve resolution 12025-01151 a resolution authorizing rescission of personal property taxes for the property at 9540 South 27th Street.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye. Item 24 is consideration of a resolution approving an amendment to the tax increment district number 11 Finance Development Agreement and Phase 3 Agreement of Emerald Road Development.
Gail will move to approve resolution 12025-01152 12028-011519, a resolution approving an amendment to the Tax Increment District Number 11 Finance Development Agreement and Phase 3 Agreement for the Emerald Road Development.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
And then item 25 is consideration of a duty disability.
I'm going to make a motion to concur with the recommendation of the Personnel Committee to certify a pending duty disability claim for a firefighter.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
And that brings us to consideration of adjournment.
Kirkowski make a motion to adjourn.
Loracle, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Excellent. I'd like to thank everybody for streaming us in. Wish you a happy new year, a little belated. And again, welcome back to the council. Thank you. Good night.